Time to pump it up. Hey everyone, welcome back to Steven Watches Movies. I'm Steven and I love watching movies. Well, today I am taking the substance, I'm pumping it up, and I'm diving into the 2024 horror film. The Substance isn't just another body horror film. It is bold, it is shocking, and it will haunt you after the credits roll. However, it is not a perfect film. Am I, could you say, split on my thoughts on this film? Perhaps. Let's dive in. When The Substance premiered, it made waves pretty much immediately for its extreme visuals and storytelling. Critics and audiences have praised its shocking approach to body horror. Coralie Farge and Demi Moore have been nominated for many awards this season, with Moore actually winning the Golden Globe for Best Actress in a Musical or Comedy, and also picking up a trophy at the Critics' Choice Awards. Will she win at the Oscars? I will get into my analysis a little later in the video. This film isn't just about gore, it's about what lies beneath. Today I'll unpack what makes The Substance such an unforgettable and disturbing experience. Whew, this is hot. This is actually really warm. Themes. I'm gonna try to not give too much away in this video, but I will say that there will probably be spoilers. I won't be able to help it. The Substance follows a woman named Elizabeth, played by Demi Moore, who is introduced to a radical beauty treatment promising eternal youth and perfection. The catch? The treatment doesn't just change her, it creates a new version of her, one that might not be willing to share the spotlight. This is where things take a turn and spiral out of control. The film explores the consequences of transformation and the battle between self-love and self-destruction. Underneath all the horror in this film, I see it being about three main themes. One, obsession, more specifically, I guess, obsession with beauty and perfection. Two, duality. And three, loss of control. In terms of obsession, it's brought on by Elizabeth's fear of aging as her decades-long aerobics show gets cancelled for, well, precisely that, her age. Well, actually, it's specifically cancelled because the network executive is a sleazy scumbag and wants to replace her with somebody new and interesting. And also, let me rephrase, it's not necessarily because of her fear of aging. She's not afraid of aging because it's already happened. She has aged. It's more, she's just depressed that she has in fact aged, and she's almost aged out of her hit show and even relevance in the industry. So her depression and loneliness kind of take a toll on her and creates this obsession with being young and vibrant. She no longer sees herself as having any value, and so she goes in search of this miracle, the substance. For the theme of duality, I found it interesting that this idea of a perfect self is kind of provided by manifesting itself as a separate entity. So even though Elizabeth becomes this perfect self, it's not really her. She doesn't get to enjoy any of it. Ultimately, her other self becomes the enemy. She literally becomes her own worst enemy. Which brings me to loss of control. Just how Elizabeth loses control over aging, she ends up losing control over her other self. It is this loss of control that caused her to seek out the substance in the first place, but it's also the loss of control that causes all the issues and chaos and just insanity in the film. Body horror and visuals. There is no doubt about it. This is a very disturbing film. For me, the disturbing nature was more the injection needles, the sounds of Dennis Quaid eating shrimp, and the sad fact that all the themes in the film are very real for many people, unfortunately. However, a lot of people will find the images in this film very disturbing, specifically the transformation and destruction of Demi Moore's Elizabeth. The Substance combines stunning makeup and great practical effects to create something totally nuts. The inspiration of this body horror is very clearly like David Cronenberg-y, more specifically The Fly, I would say. Moore's transformation is very reminiscent of Jeff Goldblum's transformation into Brundlefly from that film. The images are similar that we see throughout the film. The decline of the characters kind of follow not necessarily a similar path because they are different films, but when I was watching The Substance, I immediately was thinking of The Fly. And this was even the first time I saw it at TIFF Midnight Madness, and I didn't know what this movie was really about. So that's the one movie that I kept comparing The Substance to in terms of the body horror for pretty much the entire runtime. However, I do feel like there is a difference between these two films. Where The Fly's body horror was, I believe anyway, essential. absolutely necessary to the storytelling, to the characters, to the transformation. It didn't go, again, in my belief, it didn't go into gratuitous territory. Yes, it's shocking. Yes, it's grotesque. Yes, there are things that most people never want to see again. But it informs you of where the characters are. It doesn't create shock value for the sake of shock value. So I can't say the same for the substance. I felt like for the majority of the runtime, it was kind of following The Fly's blueprint. For the most part, it was character driven, it was story driven, it was essential to see those images the way that they were presented. So I feel like the majority of the film was great in terms of the body horror. And then you get to like the last 20, 30 minutes ish, and I think that's where things start to take a turn. There's a lot in that final chunk of the film that feels over the top just for the sake of being over the top. And I will say it is a fun film. Like when I saw it at Midnight Madness at TIFF, the crowd was going nuts for this film. Like we loved it. And it was a blast because it was kind of campy. It was silly. And does it necessarily work? I don't know. Like especially the last 20 to 30 minutes. And I just feel like it becomes gratuitous. So I will say this. When I saw it as part of Midnight Madness at the Toronto International Film Festival, I loved it. And I'm talking the entire film, okay? And even in the last chunk, we were all laughing, we were all gasping. It truly was a blast. And that was an experience that I will never forget. Then I watched it again this past weekend in preparation for this video. And that last 30 minutes that I loved, that the audience loved, that everyone was going nuts over, just completely fell flat. If you watch this film in a group that's never seen the film before, then I think it really works because you can collectively gasp and laugh and experience the insanity of it all collectively together. Then on the rewatch, me sitting alone watching it on my TV, it didn't have the same impact. It felt very gratuitous. It felt over the top for over the top's sake. So I am very much split on this film's end because I simultaneously remember that I loved it and I remember that experience, but then I didn't like it now. But I do want to stress that for the majority of the runtime of this film, it is fantastic. Performances. So let's get this out of the way. Demi Moore rocks in this. And she is this film's rock. I think without Demi Moore in this film does not work at all. I think it would crumble. I think that her performance is really what sells the insanity, what sells the chaos that ends up transpiring in this film. So aside from Moore, which I'll get back to in a second, I want to talk about Dennis Quaid. He unleashes in this film in the most surprising and disgusting way possible. Quaid brings this like sleazy, gross, but very engaging personality to this. And every moment that he is on screen, he is eating it up. Just like some of the makeup in this film and even like the events of this film are larger than life, his character is larger than life. He is always at 12. His performance was very surprising. The interesting thing is that he's always shot very close up, which is disturbing. And he plays off that really, really well, I think. And of course, Margaret Qualley is also fantastic in this. I was happy to see her nominated for a few awards during this award season. However, I do think that she doesn't have to carry the film the way that Demi Moore has to. And so her performance isn't as impactful. I mean, it doesn't take away from it. Like, I don't want to take away from her performance. I'm just trying to say that, like, I understand why Moore is being praised more for her performance and she's getting all the nominations and she's getting the awards than Qualley. Because Qualley was fantastic and she was part of the whole of that character. I will say her performance is more unsettling than Demi Moore's. I'm not sure if that is because she's more detached from reality, since she was quite literally born very recently. So it is unsettling, but just not as impactful for me. Qualley's Sue is very light, airy, MTV music video vibes kind of thing, which is a complete contrast to Moore's Elizabeth, who is lonely, depressed, angry, fearful. So because Moore gets all the emotions in this, and she is more of that anchor, I feel like without her, it would fall apart just like Monster Alyssa Sue in the alley. Crafting the story. The cinematography is definitely a highlight of this film for me. The contrast, the difference between Sue's colorful music video vibes to Elizabeth's muted, almost sterile living is something that I appreciated, as it represented the two characters very well. Almost all shots of Dennis Quaid are close-ups, disturbing close-ups. Actually, thinking about it now, there are a lot of close-ups in this film. There may be more close-ups than most films, or at least that's how it feels. Something slightly minor, but it jumped out at me during this rewatch, was how they shot the shower scenes. There are probably 5, maybe 6 shower scenes in this film. They're pretty quick, they're part of larger sequences. Even though they're all shot pretty much the same, there are subtle and not so subtle differences between those scenes. I thought it was interesting because it gave us insight into where the characters are at that particular time. For example, there's one scene right after Elizabeth's finger has changed from Sue's mismanagement of her time. Right near the end of the very quick scene, one of the shower's walls move. I'm not sure if this is just a mistake. Maybe this was the best shot they had, so they kept it in the film. If it's supposed to be part of the movie and it's intentional, then for me, it symbolizes Elizabeth's world starting to come apart slightly. Like things aren't quite right now that Sue is mismanaging her time and she's taking something from Elizabeth. So I thought that was interesting. Again, if it was a mistake, cool. If it was part of the film, I actually really like it because I think it does have some sort of symbolism there. Then later when Elizabeth's hair, face, arm, and leg have transformed, she takes a shower and the water is struggling to come out of the shower head. And to me, that represented Elizabeth's struggles with where she's at in the substance process, trying to get Sue to respect the balance. And so because she's having that struggle, she's having an external struggle with her other self, but she's also having an internal struggle because she is starting to change significantly from where we started the film. And so she's struggling with that as well. So I thought that was kind of interesting. Then later there's a shower scene where the camera keeps rising and it looks like it's an apparently infinite shower. So each scene in the shower is truly representative of some change in the character or story. And the sound design. What can I say? It's absolutely disgusting. Bones crack, skin rips, things happen. The most disgusting thing in this movie for me was the sound. I thought that really elevated everything so much more than it could be. There's a few things that stand out. One being the shrimp, obviously, as I've talked about. One also being Elizabeth's mirror freakout. It's a great performance, and everybody's talking about that scene specifically because it is such a great performance and it showcases Demi Moore very well. But I love this scene because of the sound design. It really takes what Moore is doing in her performance and elevates it to another level. Most of the sounds in this film are very bold and in your face. There really isn't much in terms of subtlety when it comes to the sound design, but I love it. The editing is also a highlight. There are so many quick cuts in this film, and it could easily just become a mess, but I think they not only become a part of the film's identity, but are stitched so tight that it does work. So one thing that can be said is that this film does not let its foot off the gas at all throughout the runtime, and it's due to sound design, performances, editing, cinematography. I think they all come together really well and complement each other. Awards, nominations, and box office. So according to IMDb, at the time of this filming, The Substance has won 109 awards and has been nominated for 257. That is crazy for this type of film, right? This is not... Like, we're not talking about I'm Still Here. We're not talking about The Brutalist. We're not talking about Nickel Boys. This is The Substance. This is a horror film. This is a gross horror film. And it is racking up nominations and awards. So I'm very pleased with it. I'm very happy with it because, even if you didn't like this film, I think you can probably still appreciate the fact that a horror film of this magnitude is getting the love from audiences, from critics, and from awards bodies, because I think it's important. And I think that we're starting to kind of, I wouldn't say turn the tide, but you know what? Step in the right direction. I'll take it. Demi Moore won Best Actress Musical or Comedy at the Golden Globes, like I said, and The Substance is nominated for 5 Academy Awards for Makeup and Hairstyling, Original Screenplay, Best Actress, Direction, and of course, Best Picture. According to Box Office Mojo, The Substance has earned close to $77 million worldwide. When I saw it at TIFF, I didn't anticipate any of the awards and the box office, so good on you, Substance. Critical and audience reception. As of this filming, it has an 89% Rotten Tomatoes score. It has a surprising 75% popcorn meter. I thought that would be higher. I thought that would be flipped, actually. I know critics liked the film since it's been nominated and it's been winning awards, but I thought audiences would embrace it a little bit more than critics, so that's kind of interesting. Dolores Quintana of the Santa Monica Mirror says, The Substance is one of 2024's best films, both a cinematic dream and nightmare that pushes the envelope way beyond the norm and glories in its own audacity. A breathtaking and sumptuous work of art that screams in your face while blowing you a kiss. I kind of like that last line, that's why I included it in this video. Carla Hay from Culture Mix says, The sci-fi horror movie The Substance is both a gruesome portrayal and a dark satire of vanity and insecurity about aging and society's beauty ideals. The movie's extremely gory and chaotic ending could have been better, but the performances are riveting. I agree. Rohan Nahar from the Indian Express says, It's the kind of film that requires courage from everybody involved, including the caterers who were presumably tasked with preparing a menu that wouldn't end up on the shooting floor every day. And Peter Howell from the Toronto Star says, Writer-director Coralie Farge salutes and then exceeds David Cronenberg's body horror gross-outs with her transformative second feature. So I both agree and disagree with that last one. As I said, I feel like some of it is just gratuitous, and where some of it doesn't really serve a purpose, where I feel Cronenberg's films are seldom gratuitous and they all serve a purpose. But to be fair to Peter, I haven't really had time to read his entire review, so perhaps he goes into more detail there. And on Letterboxd, at time of filming, it is currently sitting at a 3.8 out of 5, which is actually kind of surprising, but it has over 380,000 people giving it 5 stars. However, the majority of viewers have rated it 4 stars. Over 13,000 viewers have rated it half star. Unlike the film I'm Still Here, I can actually understand why somebody would rate this half a star, because it just might not be, you might be completely grossed out by it and think it's absolutely disgusting, and this film is definitely not for everyone, and that's okay. Oscar chances. Okay, makeup and hairstyling, let's start with the easy one. The Substance should win, hopefully, best makeup and hairstyling. Wicked or Nosferatu could potentially mount a challenge for this one, but it should be the one category that's an easy or easier win for The Substance. All the other nominations are quote-unquote glad to be here nominations, whereas this nomination would be a disappointment if it didn't win. So I'm hoping it wins, and I think it will. I think it will. So next up is original screenplay. I think this one's kind of interesting. Anora has been surging. A Real Pain has been a contender this entire time. I think The Substance is in that like 1 to 3 range for this category. It has a shot. It might not win. If the Academy gets all ooey gooey for Anora, then it's done. But if not, then this could be a pretty good challenge for it. Do I think it's ultimately going to miss? I do. I don't think The Substance will win Best Original Screenplay. That would be pretty interesting if it did. But I think the third act hurts it. I do think it hurts it in terms of the screenplay. Okay, so Best Actress. So Mikey Madison has been surging, which is causing quite a few people to believe that Madison will win over Moore. Like I said in my I'm Still Here video review, I believe that Fernanda Torres should win Best Actress. I believe she gave the best performance, hands down. It's not even close. She is clearly number one for me, but if she doesn't win the award, then I would strongly prefer Demi Moore over Mikey Madison. I think there's more to Demi Moore's performance than Mikey Madison's. So for Oscar chances, I would put Demi Moore at a high percentage, but it's not a lock. I think a lot of people were locking her into this category fairly early on, especially after the Globe win, but things have changed. Like I said, Mikey Madison's been surging. I think she's getting a lot of attention right now. For me, it's Demi Moore, Mikey Madison, and Fernanda Torres are the 3. Those are the three, those are the only three that could win this award. I want Fernanda Torres to win. I think she has the best performance. But if it's between Mikey Madison and Demi Moore, I want to go Demi Moore. For Best Director, having Coralie Farge nominated in this category is a win. It is fantastic. I love it so, so much. Does she have a shot at winning the award? No. I wouldn't put it at 0% because there have been surprises before. I wouldn't put this over 5% though. I really think it comes down to Sean Baker or Brady Corbet. I think one of the two is winning this award. I think that's pretty much a lock. So as much as I'm very excited that Coralie Farge was nominated, I don't expect a win come Oscar night. All right, the big one, the big category. So let me say that the fact that The Substance is nominated for Best Picture is insanity. Most films like The Substance never even get to sniff really any Oscar nomination, let alone Best Picture. So the fact that it was in the conversation all season long is impressive, and also a good change of pace to the nominees, I think. I think this is kind of like I've seen conversations online, and I agree that this is kind of what you get when you get 10 Best Picture nominees, right? You get the international flavor in there, and you get these sort of one-off ones that feel a little bit different, right? Because I hate to say it, but really, if it came down to that there were still 5 nominees, The Substance wouldn't have been nominated for Best Picture, right? So I think this is what happens when you get those 10, but I like it. So according to the Awards Expert app, the users there have The Substance in 7th place with a 1% chance of winning Best Picture. Do I think it has a 1% chance of winning Best Picture? No, it has a 0% chance of winning Best Picture. 7th place is a little low for me, though. I would have around the 4 to 5 spot. So I'm going to be honest, after watching it at TIFF, I had this in my number 1 or number 2 spot. I thought it was fantastic. Like I said, great experience. My rewatch has brought it down a little bit. I would say it's my rewatch coupled with the fact that I've seen the other Best Picture nominees and I've seen other great films as well. So for me, in terms of Best Picture nominees, though, I would say it's still top 5, but it's probably on that 5th spot. All right, let's put this back on. So I've got my headband back on. I've got my little Oscar friend here. Hello. How many of these will The Substance take home on Oscar night? Let's recap. Hair and makeup, yep, I expected to win that category and go home as Academy Award winner, The Substance. Original screenplay, it has a shot, it might prevail, but I think it has a tough job to do just that. Best Actress, very good shot at winning an Oscar and for Demi Moore to be crowned an Oscar winner finally after her long career. Best Director, no real shot at this, but very happy that Coralie was nominated and can now be identified as such, because now it's Academy Award nominee Coralie Farge. So very cool. Best Picture, not going to happen, but wouldn't that be something though, eh? Wow, that would be incredible. It would kind of change the game a little bit, I think, if The Substance were to win. Horror would now be considered legitimate contenders. So anyway, not going to happen, but that would be really cool. So I do predict 1 Academy Award win for The Substance. Possibility of 1 more, maybe. So the category that I'm struggling with there is Best Actress, of course. Original Screenplay, maybe, but really, like, to me, it tops 2 awards. Probably just the 1, but we'll see. Reflections and final thoughts. The Substance is a film that sticks with you to the end. Whether you think it's campy and silly or grotesque and disgusting, you're going to think about this after it ends. Not as long as some of the other films that are nominated for Best Picture, of course, but it's still going to be with you a little bit. That experience of watching it's going to be with you. Not necessarily just because of the body horror, it's also because of the messaging that the film has. It really challenges ideas of, like I said, beauty, obsession, and self-worth in an interesting way. If you are a fan of David Cronenberg or body horror or psychological horror or horror in general or campiness and just wild insanity, then I think this is a must-watch and I think you're going to really enjoy it. Be warned, though, it's not an easy ride, so it's not for everyone, right? Have you seen The Substance? What did you think of it? What about the last 20, 30 minutes? Did you think it was too much? Did you think it was too little? Or just that Goldilocks zone right in the middle? Let me know in the comments. And finally, what do you think its Oscar chances are? Do you think it's going to go home with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 Oscars? Honestly, if you think it's going to win 4 or 5 Oscars, let me know why. I really want to know. You may convince me. Who knows? Anyway, thank you for watching. It's time to pump it up. I'll see you in the next video.